having a spinnaker chute and a launch tube is really tempting in winter to just, you know, pull your spinnaker down into the tube and let it sit there all winter. After all, the boat's inside and it shouldn't get wet in there, but you know, and especially if your boat is stored outside, I always put mine in a bag. So that way this bag isn't really breathable too much, but it's just better, you know, when you pull it down into the chute and leave it down there, it's out of sight, out of mind. But, you know, it's not really protected from moisture, you know, down there that you could maybe get in there. So mold on sails, once it starts, it just seems to kind of hard to get rid of. This one so far, I don't think I have any mold on this spinnaker. And it's a few years old. So anyway, that's what I do. I do this. This is what I found to use as a bag to keep my furling line and my spinnaker halyard, which normally there's a lot more line out here that I can coil up, and keep it up off the cockpit floor, keep it up out of my way, and most importantly, keep all of it in here so it's not out on the floor where I can you know, trip on it, or worse, get it around your ankles or something. This pole lift line here, I just do this and that works just fine. But this is real handy. I got it at a backpackers outdoor show in Cascade Locks, and it's an American made little small company, and it had this loop on the back which is really sturdy, and I just used a piece of Velcro around that, and then down here so I can kind of move this. I like it because it swings back and forth, it gets out of my way, keeps everything up off the cockpit floor. That's the main thing. So, this is my new Outhaul purchase setup. I think it's got 2 blocks at the back and then one on the clew, and then it's got 2 micro blocks on the front. So I think that's, I don't know, 6-to-1, 5-to-1, I don't know. It's a lot better. I used to not be able to, I think I had a 3-to-1 before. I bet this is double the purchase or the power that I had before. So, you know, I've got this, I want to put a cam cleat here, but actually I'm glad I left this clam cleat on here because it seems to be working. I'm probably going to have to do this number where I have a thicker line there, because this is only, these control lines here are only 4mm. I went real thin just because these Harkin micro blocks are so small, which is all I wanted, you know. I mean, it works great. So I just had a block in the front, a turning block in the front, a single, and then it went to the back and turned once, and then went to that clue block, and then dead-ended back there at the back. So that was at most 2 or 3-to-1. I think this is more like, this may be 6-to-1. When my original gooseneck hinge that goes to the boom, when the original one that came with the boat, the original Chryslers, it was a sliding slug that went in this slot. And what happened was mine failed when it's a pretty high wind day, and I think it just couldn't take anymore, and these spread enough that it slipped out and broke. So I've got a fixed gooseneck now that's riveted into the mast. So you want to make sure you got your measurement upright, the distance from the deck And I actually had to get it re-welded just to beef it up because I was not happy with the part when I got it from the company. I can't remember what company it was. The stainless steel plate and the tongs that, for the mount are fine, but I just thought the weld didn't look real great. So I had to pay like 40 bucks to have a guy kind of just put a better fillet weld in there. So anyway, this is held up. This is really, really strong now. I'm gonna knock on wood and say it's never gonna break. But I found that the other one, it's just not for real heavy use. I mean, it lasts a certain amount of years. My gosh, this boat is, almost 50 years old. So it held up. It had a good run, but, I just went with the fixed. So you just have to make sure your luff length of your sail works. And then you also, because you can't adjust this up and down, and then you have to make sure that you've got adequate clearance, So anyway, that's it. So for my rudder, I updated to a Nichols rudder head quite a few years back. So what I have found is that these Racelight mounts are really great. I've had really great luck with them. The ones that you buy from Racelight, like I said, I love the quality, but they really don't fit right off the shelf. They don't fit the rudder mount real well, the Nichols. So what I've found that I have to do is modify them some to fit. And the way I do that, I've got basically just a vise here, and I've got a piece of aluminum stock here, solid, that is the thickness of this dimension right here. And so what I do is I just sort of, slightly reform these Racelight rudder mounts, the Pentals, I think they're called, by just driving this into this and sort of reshaping this to the right, clearance in here. So, and then what I do is I do two of them at once, so that they're both dimensionally the same. And I also have to make sure that when I'm doing that, I keep everything all square. So I like to have a set of these ready to go and put on the rudder in case something breaks. I actually had, as good a quality as these are, I had one break. The pin broke off. It was probably after 6 years or 8 years of hard use. But it did break, and so what happened was luckily I wasn't racing or anything, I was just day sailing. But I got out there and it broke when I was putting it on to the mount. And so when it went in, it broke. And I was basically I had to call it a day because I didn't have another one of these ready to put on to the rudder head. So it was just a drag. If I would have had one of these made up and ready and fitted to go on, then I probably I would have done that. I would have just unbolted and put another one on. But as it was, I didn't have one of these extras, so I had to go buy one and then do that. So anyway, these are really well made. I've never had one of these break. These are really solid with this double layer here. What I found is that the pins wear out eventually. I'd say after as much as I sail, after about 4 years, you know, look at the play in that. So they will, the pins seem to wear more than the receiver on the mount itself. So, but this one, that's a, you know, a lot of difference. I think that's partly because I do have a bungee on my, that I kind of use as a, you know, a tiller tamer. And so I pulled down on it a little. I don't know how much difference that made, but, you know, there is some, you know, there's some wear in these parts. I found that it's not as bad now. The ones I'm using right now, these pins have held up really well. But, you know, I just have to have, I want to have 2 of these ready to go so that if anything happens, I can just, especially if you're, you know, out of town and you were doing a race or something, you'd want to be able to put another set of these on. So anyway, I haven't had any problems with these. They're great parts. They're not real expensive. This mount here is $14 and you need 2 of them. So dinghy sailing, anybody who does it knows that you get thrashed around a bit, and you're moving your body around a lot in the boat. And I always like having some padding, especially on my knees. I don't use any on my elbows, but on my knees, I just invested in these sleeves here. They're by Reband, 7mm thick. So they're really cushy. They feel like they're going to hold up pretty well. I had these thinner ones here that I've had for a long time. They're just completely worn out. You can see how much it's worn there. These are just like maybe 3mm. So this is a great upgrade. I got one just to try them out, and now I'm going to get another one. These were not cheap. I'm not endorsing these or trying to sell anything here. It's just I'm gonna get the other one and wear these. They seem to be really good. A lot of times I'm putting knee down in the cockpit when I'm coming through attack, you know, solo. I move my body in sometimes and put one knee down as I'm coming over. Also, you know, if you ever have to do a kind of a spaz maneuver or something and you go down, you know, and bump your knee on anything, it's nice to have something between you and your kneecap. So my knees have held up pretty well. I want to keep them that way. I didn't play football. I played a little basketball, but I don't have any injuries to speak of. But you know, you can just have one bad wipeout and really mess your knees up. So anyway. For anyone interested in some reading this winter on sailing related, The Outer Coast by Richard Batman. I came across this book and it is just really fantastic. An odyssey of the explorers, adventurers, and scoundrels who confronted the Pacific wilderness when it was at the edge of the world. So basically it was, you know, the California coast from 1750 to about 1900 in the history of all the crazy stuff that was going on, which a lot of it is just, you can't make this stuff up. It was just wild. Jack London's book, when he was really young, he had a summer job patrolling, you know, trying to be basically a fish and game warden, and the characters that were in San Francisco Bay at the time, chasing them around, the oyster pirates, just great stuff. A lot of it, the cover's pretty ominous, but the stories themselves are really pretty funny and cool. And then last, The Sea of Cortez, John Steinbeck's account when he went down there, a leisurely journal of travel and research. I haven't read this one yet. I imagine it'll be good. So anyway, there's some reading.